Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live show this Wednesday, May 22nd. And we have some great questions to answer tonight. And
yeah,
I think it's going to be good. So let's get right to it. All right. This was from somebody who called. I talked to someone there, and they said the length of stay at your retreat is flexible. Don't you think people need more than just a couple weeks to get over an addiction? Do people actually change that quickly? This is a common question that we get from people that call. There are people that think that you need 6 months or a year, and then there are people that, and most of those are family. Let's get that straight.
Yeah.
Family is looking for somebody to go away for a really long time.
Then the person themselves never wants to be away for 6 or 9 months or a year.
No person is going, oh, let me be institutionalized for a year voluntarily.
Yeah, no, nobody wants to do that. And because then we get the other side, and people call and they go, can I just do it in a weekend? And so it's, yes, the answer is, can you change your life in a weekend? You can change it in a decision. And I'm not trying to make it sound trite or like the people don't struggle, because they do, but there are people that literally make a decision and it's done.
Well, let me jump in and say that everybody stops eventually. The people that do stop eventually stop with a decision. There's a moment in time where the decision is made, and only that individual can make it. So the question is, what does it take to get to that moment in time when you make the decision? Right. And so people ask me when I'm teaching at the retreat, and they'll say, Mark, how long does it take? Does it take 6 weeks to change a habit? Does it take 4 weeks? Does it take 3 weeks? And I've said it can take a lifetime, or it can take a moment or a day. It really is dependent on your belief system.
Yes.
What mythology or what misinformation is holding you back from the truth that you are the person that's going to make the choice? So if there's a whole bunch of distractions in the way that diverts you away from you having control, that you are the one in control, then it's going to take a long time, because you have to undo all that stuff, which is what a lot of the freedom model is about, is debunking all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you're somebody that's been to treatment multiple times, you've been part of the recovery community for a long period of time, you might want to be with us a full 4 or even 5 weeks. If you haven't been through all that, geez, I know Steven's worked with people, and they've been done in 5 or 6 classes, right, Steve?
Yeah. That was what originally, made me, I guess, really speed up the development of what we were doing long ago when we opened the office here in New York. And I had guys that within a few classes were like, oh God, this is so much simpler than I thought.
Right.
And that caused me to rethink so much of what we were originally doing, which a lot of what we were originally doing did drag it out somewhat, right? But I was reading something yesterday called Parkinson's Law, and it's not about Parkinson's, the disease. It's about it says that work will expand to fit the space that you give it. Right, you give yourself a year to do a project. It'll take you a year. It might even take you longer than that. Right, and the guy who wrote it puts it, his last name is Parkinson, he puts it in all these different ways, right? But the principle is simple, which is, if you set these expectations that something's going to take a long time, it's going to take a long time, right? And now the problem with recovery is the expectation is that it's an ongoing, lifelong process. You never really finish it. You're not recovered, you're recovering, right? So people stretch out, you give them the space. I hate to say it that way, you give them the space, but you give them the space, and they'll never change in a way. So and what I mean by giving them space or not giving them space is not saying like, okay, we'll threaten people and tell them they better stop today.
Right, but you set up the expectation.
That doesn't necessarily work. But if you're going to set the expectation that, look, this is going to be tough and you're going to have to work on it forever, it might take you a real long time and you're going to struggle. Well, then that's exactly what people will do, right?
That's right. Can I jump in, Steve? For a second? I think that in private instruction, when you're teaching somebody from home, the expectation is, and you're bringing up expectations, the expectation is I'm going to learn something very valuable in this class, because usually they have a certain amount of chaos in their life that's surrounding them. Mm-hmm. And some of them are actively drinking, actively getting high, and they're trying to figure out, can they moderate? They're trying to figure all this stuff out. So the class is really pretty intense, right. and formal. The retreat is a different beast in a way. And I think that there's two things that are happening. Some people that come to our retreat are there strictly for the material, to learn it. And they could probably learn it from private instruction or something like that, or the books. But then they end up at our retreat for some reason. And after doing this 30 years, I found that population usually wants to decompress in a lot of areas of their life. They're going through a significant change, not just drinking and drugging. There's other things happening that they need to escape from, retreat from, right. And then sort of decompress and figure out. If you get somebody in their, let's say their 50s, who's a woman going through menopause, a divorce, and all this.
Her kids are grown and left.
Yeah.
And she's trying to, figure out things, who she is, you know, and life at home maybe is lonely, or maybe it's still very chaotic, and you just, you need to take some time away and kind of be immersed in, and not just a solution, but be immersed in a positive environment.
Yeah, where they have the time to think outside the chaos.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to know that has value.
So do people need a week, 2 weeks? Now, I think the average time it takes somebody to get through the book and that, through the material in that intensive environment, coming to the retreat is 3 to 4 weeks. Definitely, we have had many people get through it in 3 weeks. But there are some people that want to be away longer, and they want to take it a little bit slower. Like I said, especially those people that have been part of the recovery world for a long time, and it's you're amazed. It's really insidious what you believe about yourself and substances when you've been in that world for so long.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah. And so I think this is probably one of the most important topics. I feel like we could go on and on about it forever. But what you said, Mark, before, though, is that everybody decides. It's a decision, right? And so the question is, when are you going to arrive at that decision, right? So we're trying to give people the right information so they can inform their decision-making process. And once you do really decide, that's it. There is work, right? We think you're reversing this big thing, but this guy, I always mention Alan Carr because I loved his book. It was one of the best things about addiction that I've ever read. He talked about smoking, and he said, look, I live in the UK. You think breaking habits is hard, right? I live in the UK, but I go to the United States, and I immediately break my habit of driving on the left side. Right? I immediately do it. And that line always stuck with me. And about 2 years ago, I went to Ireland with a friend and I rented a car. And I had no trouble driving on the opposite side of the road whatsoever. There was no problem with that, right? When there's no motivation to continue a habit, the habit part of things is actually really easy to break. Now, and if you do quit drinking or, you're cut down or whatever, you still might have a bunch of habitual thoughts that go along with it. But when you aren't motivated to follow through on them,
right.
they kind of float away, and they don't mean much, right? So the idea is there's all this work that needs to be done, and really there's just a decision to be made. And the truth is that some people, the day that they sign up to get help, they actually make the decision.
Oh yeah.
And we even cover that in chapter 1 or 2 of the Freedom Model. We talk about those studies that showed that all of the change in these treatment programs that they looked at happened in week 0, before they even came in for their first session, when they assessed the amount of drinking and all of that took place, and it didn't change much through the 12 weeks of the treatment, right? So it's when are you going to decide, right? And this is not like, if you have hepatitis C and they have this pill and you got to take it for 12 weeks and it's beating back this virus for 12 weeks and building antibodies in you. It's not that. It's a decision point. And so however long it takes you to get there is how long it takes to change.
That's right.
Very good. Very good. All right. I have been following you guys for a few months now, and I've got the book, but I've only gotten through the first chapter. I really don't like reading, and I can't stay focused enough to read. We get this a lot.
Yep.
I really do like your approach, but how can I do the Freedom Model if I can't get through the book?
Well,
that's a great question.
Yeah. First of all, we're producing a lot of video content on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, which helps people get a lot of the major concepts through video. Yeah. And a lot of those videos are made by me, Steve, and Michelle. So you're getting it right from the authors, straight from us. And then we have the Addiction Solution podcast, where we cover a lot of topics like what we cover here. Yeah. And so, but the other thing is, even if you took private instruction or if you were at the retreat, you don't have to read. We can just talk. And we know, based on a conversation, what the need is of the person, because we've done this for 30 years. If you tell me what's going on, I can apply a chapter and have a conversation where you're going to understand how to fix the problem that you're having. Yeah. Or we'll clarify whatever you're confused about or whatever it might be. So it's not that difficult. I mean, we have a lot of different channels.
We do, at some point, we are going to do an audiobook. I know a lot of people are asking for it. There's production costs and stuff associated with that, and it really does require a lot of our time to do it. We just haven't had the time to do it. Yep. But that will be forthcoming at some point, hopefully before the end of the year. I don't know. I know there are some apps and stuff that read books to you. Yeah. That you might want to try. I don't know how they work, because I am a reader and I prefer reading to listening. So, but yeah, like Mark said, I mean, it's, and if you have questions, even when you're reading, you can call and talk to us. I mean, we're available.
Yeah. People are always shocked when they call. It's the same number. We should have our producer put the number there, but if you call, you will literally get us.
You will literally get one of us is available at some point.
Yeah, we want to help.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely.
Steve, go ahead.
I don't know what else to add to that. It's just, I guess, some people can sit and read a book and really focus and dig in and be in their own little world with it. And sometimes you have to be interacting with someone. It comes down to a matter of personal style, right? And so if the books and videos you're having a hard time following along, then obviously we have private instruction, we have the retreats, and you sit and talk to somebody about it along with the reading, or sometimes some people don't even read it, right? And they want us to give it to them via lecture, basically, in the classes. Yeah. And we'll do that, and we'll lecture and do it in an interactive way, back and forth. You get this part, let's dig into it. And so, it's a matter of personal style, and I guess we do have something on every end for that.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
We really do. And just so everybody knows, through the end of May, we are offering 20% off of all of our products and services. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you're considering signing up for private instruction or even getting the books, you have to get them through us though if you want to get the discount.
Yeah.
Because with Amazon, it
Yeah.
never works right. We can't do that. We have agreements with Amazon. We're not allowed.
Amazon wants their money.
So if you want to discount, you gotta call.
I want my $2.
Right. All right. Oh, I love this question because we get this question every time. I was shocked, but I was encouraged when I read the first line in your book, which Mark made us do, by the way, because I was like, oh no, we can't do that. That anyone can moderate. That's the first line in our book, basically, that anyone.
The line that drives away a million parents, right?
It's the reason we wrote the family book. So I have tried to drink moderately, but I always end up totally effed up. Surely there are those people who are too far gone to ever be able to drink moderately. Maybe I'm one of those people. I feel like a total failure, so I feel bad about
that. Well, let me just say,
you're not a failure.
You're not a failure at all.
Not at all.
And here's the difficulty. You're doing what you want to do, but you may be horribly misinformed about a lot of what are your reasons for drinking. So anybody can moderate if they want to moderate, but they have to know the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth is that you are in control of yourself, and everybody's in control. The loss of control is a myth. So we cover all that in the freedom model in detail. So there's no question about why you're doing what you're doing. I know Steve, I'm sure, has a lot to say about this, so I'll let him go.
I do have a lot to say about this one.
Yeah.
You know, you have to change the question totally, right? It's not, can I or can't I moderate? Am I one of the people who can or one of the people who can't? That's a AA question or an NA question, right? You see people at the meeting struggle with the acceptance that I am a real addict or a real alcoholic. It all hinges on, I was trying to moderate for a while, you know, and I kept trying it my own way. I heard that the other night.
Oh, yeah.
I observed an NA meeting the other night, and I say, you know, I kept trying to do it my own way. I heard that.
Way to do it, by the way.
What?
That's the way to do it, by the way.
My own way.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, you know, but they're coming. But and I've seen this also. You know, I had a student last year who had 20 years in AA, and that kept nagging at her. Well, maybe I'm one of the real alcoholics, and I can't moderate, right? And so they make it one of ability, you know, or inability. Like, you know, you're missing a leg, so you can't play football, you know.
Yeah.
So, it really isn't that. It is, like you said, Mark, the question of what you want to do, you know. And if what you want to do is shut out the world and be on a drinking binge all weekend, right? You don't want to have to respond to anybody. You just want to be in your own little hole there in the couch drinking, right? Then saying, okay, well, I'm only going to have 2 drinks. I'm going to, like, it doesn't make sense. It's not what you really want to do, right? And when you go past the 2 drinks and you end up drinking all weekend and being completely antisocial, that was what you wanted to do, right? So what needs to be questioned is not whether I have the ability or how do I maintain control after the 2nd drink, right? It's like, wait a minute. Do I want to be holed up in my house all weekend, not talking to anybody, getting so run down by alcohol that I feel horrible and ashamed, and then I keep on doing it, right? Do I want that behavior to be a part of my life still? Is it what really brings me happiness at that point? That's a lot harder question for people to delve into, especially for counselors to delve into, right? It's a lot easier for counselors to say, well, I think, you're one of those people that can't moderate, and you have to accept that, right? That makes their jobs much simpler. It makes the whole thing, but it to sort of tell people you don't have that ability. But it's not accurate. It's that you want to be on that drinking binge, or you want to get wasted and tell everybody off, right? Or whatever is the problem sort of behavior that you're trying to pull back from. It's not that you lose control and go there. It's that you do want to go there. And I know it's an ugly fact that people don't want to face. I know with my own drug use, I can look back very clearly and say, I mean, for one, I loved shooting up heroin and cocaine. I thought it felt great at the time. But I also didn't want to face life. I was young. I didn't have confidence that I could become independent and accomplish things. And so I sort of was settling for, well, I'll chase drugs around all day, every day. Right. And so though I made these quit attempts over the years, and then I would start toying with the drug again and get right back to it, because what I really wanted to do was just live in a world where I had this simplistic goal of chasing drugs all day. And that was what I wanted then. So I could not moderate at that time, as long as I wanted to sort of be a junkie. I know people hate that word. I'm going to get people pissed off, but like, it's sort of what I wanted to be at that time. Not that I chose to be a junkie, but that I wanted to just wallow in that. I know that sounds awful.
No,
it doesn't.
I want to just, hi, Sally. Sally just said, I just hate what 12-step thinking has done to people. It's an interesting thing, because when I was raised in AA, and I was raised to think that if I started drinking or using drugs, that I'd be an addict, I'd be an alcoholic. And so I would look for that. I would like go out, and I can think back now and know that I never started drinking with the intent of drinking too. I mean, never.
Right.
But I would tell people,
right,
because I had people already saying to me, like early on when I was drinking, oh God, she's gonna get wasted again. She's gonna make a fool of herself. She's so embarrassing, whatever. So I would have people already telling me that I should watch what I was drinking and things like that. And so I would say outwardly, oh, I'm not going to drink too much tonight. Oh, I'll be the designated driver. That was a big thing for me. I'll be the designated driver. And then I'd end up being too hammered to drive home, even though that didn't stop me sometimes. And so when I went to AA, to me, that meant I qualified as a real alcoholic. But I even now know that I was never sincere. I never drank not to get drunk.
I think that's a good point. And then there's the people that confuse that they want to get rid of their consequences with moderate drinking. I want to moderate my drinking, and really what they want to do is they want to moderate the consequences of their drinking, but they still like drinking.
Right. They still like the benefits they think they're getting from being drunk.
Right. So they have this desire and what we would call a craving, which is a thought, a want. Yeah. They want to be drunk. They want to be really drunk. I wanted to be drunk. And I can remember the sky falling and all these social pressures, because I'd screwed up with so many people, and the depression and the anxieties that I had, and the intense loneliness. All that was a cost of my drinking, but I sure still like the drinking.
Yeah.
So I would say to myself and others, I'm going to chill out, I'm going to moderate, and really that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be drunk still, but not pay the price.
Right.
Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too, because there's trade-offs with everything. And if you're going to get blitzed, there's an inevitable cost associated with it. And some of it is going to come out of the blue, man. like when the cops go by me and I go forward at 100 miles an hour and I crash into a tree. I didn't start the night thinking that was going to happen, right?
That wasn't your goal.
Yeah. So there's just the inevitability of the costs. And when you've drank enough or drugged enough, those consequences are constant, because it's just the way that lifestyle is. So people confuse moderating a lot of times with moderating costs. And they really want to still get drunk, but they say outwardly, I don't want to get drunk anymore. I hate it. No, you don't.
Right. Because when you hate it, you'll find, when you really, really hate it, you'll stop.
Yeah, when you hate the drinking part. We all hate the cost.
Well, everybody hates the cost.
Nobody likes the cost. Okay? Nobody does. So the drinking has perceived benefits to you, because if you didn't perceive benefits, you wouldn't do it.
Right.
So a lot of people don't really want to moderate. So anybody can moderate. And I want to be very clear. We open the freedom model with that. Anybody, regardless, irrespective of the drug they take, how much they take at this present moment, they can all moderate if they want to moderate. If they don't see the value in heavy use anymore, it becomes very easy not to use heavily.
Right.
But when you still value heavy use, you're going to use heavily.
Yeah. Yep.
We do what we want to do.
Absolutely. And I want to say too that when I quit, I was not so much quitting drugs, though I did, but I was choosing, you know what? I want to do so much more and different with my life.
Yes.
I want to spend my time differently. This has gotten really boring, really hard to keep up, and I want to move on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
And so then by the time 4 or 5 years later, when I decided to drink and to do so moderately, there was absolutely no issue with it, because I didn't want to be in a cycle of being intoxicated all day.
Yeah.
I was just so far removed from what I wanted. So I wasn't going to lose control. You don't lose control. You know what I mean? First of all, you don't lose control.
Right.
But I wanted the drink as like this treat. And so it was a treat.
Right.
Is what it has remained in my life. So what are you looking for out of your drug use or alcohol use, right? As long as you're still looking for some extreme, you're going to live out that extreme. And
Right.
so, and this can change. This is the most important part. We say now, and I went through this with a student a couple months ago, where he's like, well, so you're saying I can't moderate? And I say, no, I'm saying like, well, right now you don't seem to have a moderate desire, right? But you can change that over time as you think about it differently, right?
Right.
You can, as soon as it's really what you want, but I don't know what you really want and when you're going to really want something different.
Right.
But if we illuminate all the issues, maybe you'll get there,
That's a real good way of saying it. You will moderate when you have a desire to moderate, when you have a moderate desire, right?
Moderate desire. Yeah, that's
a great line right there. If you have a moderate desire, you will moderate. If you have a heavy desire, right? For heavy use, you're going to use heavily. I mean, it's not any more complex than that. And prior to AA and this Western culture's history, that's how people just knew that, because they knew the truth. So I just want to say one thing, and I'll let Michelle go. It's not happenstance when you look at the chart of use where there's natural remission, where people stop their use over time, that it's always, once it peaks at around the early 20s, it always goes down almost to zero as time goes on. In other words, as human beings get older, they get wiser and their tastes change.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And when your tastes change, allow yourself that. Don't listen to AA that says you're an unchanging, broken person. That's bullshit.
And speaking of, Sally Sanders asked a question here. How can I tell the young rehabbers that they don't have a lifelong disease? Yeah. Right? Speaking exactly. Don't let people tell you that you're broken. So How do you guys answer this question?
Well, I think this is I'm not going to bash mental health, but this is kind of an offshoot of mental health, because in mental health in general, behavioral, health, there is this tendency to label people, and basically they give people a label that's lifelong, that's forever. When you look at 6-year-old boy and he's kind of hyper, I maybe there's something going on where he's overactive now, but I don't like the idea. This is how I deal with it with young people. I'm like, you are not going to be the same. You're not the same person you were at 10 years old. You're not the same person you were at 20 years old if you're 50 now. And through every stage of your life, you're going to like different things. You're going to want different things. You're going to, 10-year-old boys don't like 10-year-old girls. By the time they're 20, they might be girl crazy. You know what I mean? So you may have rode your bike everywhere when you're 10, but you're not going to do that when you're 30. It's allow yourself the opportunity to change and grow and like different things as you mature, as you learn. And I think that the key to changing a preference of something is to figure out, to really learn exactly what it is doing for you and what it isn't doing for you. And I think that's what the freedom model does so well.
Yeah.
And that can be with anything. I mean, there are people that use a lot of different things, cupcakes. If they feel stressed out, they're like, I gotta have a cupcake or whatever, and it's like, obviously a cupcake doesn't do anything for stress.
Yeah.
But maybe for a little while it makes them feel a little bit better. Who knows? But I do know a lot of cupcakes will have a lot of pretty negative consequences,
right.
So which will probably add to your stress level in the end. And that's the same for heavy substance use as well. So yeah, so I think what we do with young people is we say, look at this chart. It peaks right here in the early 20s. But the majority of people grow out of it. They grow out of liking intoxication. Now, once they go to rehab, it elongates the problem, because now you believe that you're going to be like this forever, and you're going to like heavy use forever.
And that's the great lie. And that is that drug use or heroin or drinking or pot or whatever is so much better than everything else out there in life, that you'll be hooked forever. And that is so absurd.
It is.
Because if you're a drug taker like I was,
Yep,
that hit it hard, in 6 years, I was so incredibly bored with it that I was literally suicidal from boredom and loneliness. I mean, because I wasn't doing anything. And Steve alluded to that he had dreams, he had other things, aspirations. And I got to the point where I was so bored but I had so much recovery nonsense that I wasn't looking outside the box anymore, because I assumed I was screwed for life. That I was this broken alcoholic. What a sad thing to tell somebody who's 18 years old. It's so incredibly false, but it became my reality.
Yeah.
So if I was to talk to an 18-year-old, which I have thousands of times, I tell them, don't go to rehab. If you have to go, play the game, read the freedom model, do something else, and know that your dreams can be huge and wonderful, and that heroin is just a tiny little speck in your life in the overall context of what you could be doing.
Yeah. And the same really does go for a lot of young people now go to rehab, and they get dual diagnosed. I was diagnosed with bipolar at 20 years old. And I don't have bipolar. I was a heavy substance user at the time. I was crazy. I was doing crazy things. I'm totally volatile. And that's pretty normal for a heavy substance user. We're pretty volatile people in general. You may be struggling with depression or anxiety. Just because you're struggling with it at a specific moment in time doesn't mean you're going to be struggle with it forever. It doesn't.
Right. That's right.
So seek out people that can help you to move forward, and solve the problem. And that's what we talk about here.
Yeah. And you know what I would add, just if you want to talk to young people that are going through rehabs about, hey, you don't have this lifelong disease, I mean, give them a copy of the Freedom Model.
Yep.
Or get one of the 2 papers Mark Lewis has written over the past year. print that out, get a copy of that, print it, and hand it to people. He takes on every part of that brain disease model and shows you why it's exactly normal brain functioning. And you don't, it's not a disease, right?
Right.
So, but then the next part is, ask people, do they want to play this charade or not? Right? Because I think that most young people, when they get shoved into rehab, they know that they're being fed a bunch of bullshit.
Oh, they do. I did.
Yes. But there's incentives, and we talk about this in the book. I talk about it in the TED Talk that I did, right? There's incentives to play along. I mean, you got it. And so, I would have a real heart-to-heart. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to play this charade, right? Are you going to give all the right excuses? You have to say like, oh, I do it for escape. And, I was just writing about this today. I did drugs to get high. And when I talked with my other friends about it, and I had a memory and I was writing about it for a book on opioids. And I remember this was just 2-3 months before I went to the Freedom Model retreat. I ended up in detox. And then my 2 drug buddies who I had been running with for a couple years now, they detox at the same time, right? And we're all talking about how great it would be to go get high. This is after 5 years of health. I know, to counsel people.
We're losing, Steve.
Meeting to your I guess I should.
I know you keep breaking up. Now you seem to be with us, but
yeah.
Oh, now he's still breaking up.
Yeah. Why don't you hop off for a second, then sign back in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Next question.
We'll go to the next question, and then when Steve comes back, you can finish the story because I really wanted to hear that story.
Yeah.
My church hosts a program called Celebrate Recovery. The concept behind it is great, but I feel it's just allowing people to ride the hamster wheel of perpetual recovery. I've been asked to share my personal story about struggling with substance use, but I'm fearful of what the reception will be because I will be completely contrary of what people have heard. What's your advice on how I share that addiction is not a disease and I overcame the issue by just deciding to? Well, we kind of tried to do this in AA, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't received very well, just going to say.
We get this a lot. People who have broken free from AA or NA, and then they have to deal with a sponsor, right? That they've had for 5 years, that's been their judge and jury for the last 5 years, or whatever it might be. And they call us or they email us or they text us and say, how do I deal with these people in my life? I want to help people in AA learn the Freedom Model or a non-disease approach. I want to tell them what I've learned. I've read this research. And I got to tell you, I tried to change AA from within AA for 12 solid years of my life, and it was probably the worst 12 years of my life. I mean, it taught me how to be a great researcher. It taught me how to be a historian about AA. It benefited me because I'm in the industry of helping people with an addiction. But the truth of the matter is I would just leave and move on. Now, here's where it gets weird. When people move on from AA, it's very hard for them because all of a sudden they're free and they have all this time. And I've dealt with smokers. It's interesting because smoking is every so often, right? They smoke. It's this little distraction. I call it a little mini vacation. And they have these little mini vacations during the day. Think about it. A smoker gets a little mini vacation at work that other guys don't get, right? The non-smokers don't get that. So you have these little mini distractions in your life, and those distractions are valuable to that person. So I forgot where I was going with that, but it'll come back to me. Well,
anyway, so the question becomes, do you want to stay involved in this group? You like the group. Having zero expectations that you're going to change the group. What we did when we were in AA was we found people, we would subtly say, we wouldn't call ourselves alcoholics. We would say that we'd recovered. We would just kind of throw nuggets out there so people knew that we had a different message, and that people could be okay. And those people came to us, and then we could help them kind of on the DL, but I think to go into a group and try to change the group, I don't know. I somehow, I just don't think that's healthy. I don't think it causes a lot of problems. I mean, we were abused when we were in AA, and we were only trying to help people. And they were not interested in a way. I get it, that it was. And the thing about Celebrate Recovery is it's a religious organization. AA and the 12-step model is rooted in a Christian way of thinking, which, it is what it is. So it's a matter of, I can't do for myself what God is going to do for me. And I think, if I'm right, that Celebrate Recovery kind of has that same idea.
It does.
I still am a person of faith, but I have a bit different take on that. I think we're born innately with the ability to choose. So, we were created in God's image. So here we are, and we already have everything we need to figure this out and do what we want to do. So certainly you can stay involved in the group if you want, but have zero expectations that you can change it.
That's fantastic.
Can you guys hear me at this point?
Yes.
So I'm going to jump in and say, you have to think about the incentives of why people are in these groups and rehabs and why they carry on the way that they do. Okay. There are some people in these in support groups and rehabs who are really looking for a solution, would love to end their problem. They're just really confused as to how to do it. And the rehab structure, the recovery construct is making them very confused. If you can discern who those people are, then you can say, hey, there's another way.
Yes.
Right? But the sad part that I had to realize at a certain point is that there are some people that they like this problem.
Yeah.
They like struggling with it. They like working on recovery perpetually. And they're there because
it becomes their identity.
It comes down to an identity. And you're never going to change their minds. And if you try to, it's really a personal affront or an assault on them. It really feels like that to them. And what you have to understand is they like that. They like being in that world, or they don't want to stop using drugs. Some of the ones that don't stop, and they like that this is their excuse that they don't stop. They like perpetually being like, well, I'm going to my counseling, I'm going to this. And maybe the only reason they're there is to make other people happy. And this perfectly supports that, right? I came to this realization thinking about, why the heck are rehabs still in business when everybody knows they don't work? Or at least it used to be that everybody knew that rehab doesn't work. People, and South Park did the episode where it was a literal revolving door in and out of the rehab of people coming back and forth.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was a cliche. Everybody knew that. And so it would be, why did these things stay in business? Because people like the hope that someone else is going to fix them.
I want to, the structure of a rehab, the way you're institutionalized and told how to behave and how to be fixed, is attractive. And that was the point I was making with the smoking thing. When people quit smoking, they have all this time, right? All of a sudden, every 10 minutes, they have time, and they become more creative. But at first, it's really difficult to adjust to this freedom. And in the book, we talk about a caged lion. It's like you've been caged in this trap for so long, and it's known. You're literally being told how to think, how to act, and then you break free, you get excited, you want to go back to those people all in the cage and say, hey,
it's so much better out here.
Yeah, it's awesome out here. Yeah. And then you get hammered on because what the point Steve just made is that they value that structure.
Yeah.
Most people don't. Okay. Most people go to AA, they find it very weird, very cult-like. They know it just doesn't resonate. They don't want to be labeled. And they're like,
Right.
But then you have people like me that get kind of forced into it and were bred into it, right? Literally by my family, I was just pulled into it. It was part of my family life. It's the culture of my family. And I knew something was amiss, but I got caught up in it. And then it was very painful. I realized I was in a cult. I extricated myself from it. I wanted to save it. I wanted to save everybody in it because honestly, I didn't know how to live out of it. I was afraid of walking completely out of that cage and building my own human existence that was separate from this identity that I carried forever. But I'll tell you, when I made that decision, it was extraordinary. It was extraordinary because my life took off like a rocket ship because I wasn't looking back anymore. I wasn't looking to the side trying to help these people. I was just saying, I'm going to chart this new course out in the unknown. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I was like, I can't believe I wasted years, nearly a decade of my life, in this small thing.
Yeah.
Hi,
Monica. Monica just joined us.
Hi, Monica.
Hey.
And she says also, it's gone. It's gone. It left my feed.
Oh, I've got it.
You've got it also. What did she say?
She said also the culture is so brainwashed that even those not with issues think it's a lifelong so-called struggle, right? And she goes on to talk about, that it's in the media. Somebody at a watch party said, what are your thoughts about the portrayal of addiction recovery in entertainment, pop culture, the mainstream media? These are all of these comments here run together. It is a big problem in our culture now, Hollywood's depiction of addiction. And as Monica mentioned here as well, Marty Mann went out from AA. She went after, I think it was the Twilight Zone. She got Pat Boone. She got all these, she got playwrights, screenwriters, and all these people to do storylines that fit the AA model of alcoholism. We've got that 1,000 times now because of the obsession with drugs, right? And so everybody's believing this, right? And I guess what I like to do most is say, hey, most people get over these problems. It's statistically proven without any kind of help, and they move on. And I can tell you why. And of course, I'm very knowledgeable in all those facts, right? So I try to lay out that stuff. That's how I try to convince the average person that it doesn't have to be a lifelong struggle. And once you start having that conversation, they do eventually say, oh yeah, my brother had a pretty bad cocaine problem in college. And I remember he just quit. Like, yeah, there you go. Right. It happens more often. Yeah, that's the norm. So I try to have that conversation with people and to publicize that kind of information to let the average person know that this doesn't have to be a struggle. But people are afraid of that idea because it seems unsympathetic to those who do struggle. Like you're minimizing addiction if you say most people quit this without going to AA meetings for the rest of their life.
Right.
Yeah. The great big lie is that the disease theory reduces stigma, and I think it has absolutely the opposite effect. I mean, if you get a disease addiction diagnosis, even way back when you couldn't. I remember my husband filled out some paperwork for something. This is went way back because we met in AA. He 13-stepped me, all that. But anyways, he didn't, by the way. But if you look at today's standards, you would think that. But he filled out some paperwork and was honest with it that he at one point had a problem with addiction and he didn't get the job. that he wanted to get.
Yes,
And, because it needed security clearance at a certain level, government security clearance, and he couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So the idea that the disease of, the disease model or disease theory reduces stigma is absurd.
Well, not only that, but it's a lie.
Yeah, but it's not true.
Right. So we're going to lie to people to supposedly get rid of stigma,
but
right?
really to control them.
But yeah, which doesn't really work, but really to control them. So
Yeah.
it's an end around. So, yeah.
But she makes a great point. I mean, the media is, gosh, you can't watch. I literally have stopped watching television because every show that I came to like had that. I mean, I will not watch Shameless. I loved Shameless.
It was a funny show.
It was a great show. What a great show. And
remember when he sponsored that guy in AA and then moved in and started using it?
It was a great show. But I haven't watched the last 2 seasons because it became
endless.
all about that. And I was like, wow, this is, there's other shows that I think would have been good shows. I think Elementary with the whole theme with Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes books. I was so looking forward to that show coming out. And it turned out to be all about, him and his sober companion. And I'm like, come on, man. I just can't even do it.
So I just want to say, just leave. Don't go to AA. Don't try to help the people there that are stuck in that system.
Or celebrate recovery or whatever it is.
Just go.
Find it if you want to be involved in a church organization that helps people. There are plenty of them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, necessarily deal with addiction. Look, I'm Catholic. The Catholics got it all wrong. They run rehabs all over the country. They couldn't be any more wrong about this. So, so I steer clear of all that. That is not what I want to be doing with my time. All right, we have one more question, which is good because we're at 7:52.
Oh yeah.
I'm an African American man in my 50s. I've always been told that addiction is a disease, and it has been used to excuse behaviors within my culture. How do you make sure that the Freedom Model is more accessible in our community and available as a resource?
Well, here's the deal. If somebody calls me direct, I'll give them the book for free. I have no problem providing.
Here he is saying that.
I know. I do this constantly.
He does. And if we're at an event and you want to come see us, he'll give it to you. You just start talking to him about it. He'll be like, "Oh yeah, you want a book?" And I'm like, "We're supposed to be selling those."
Yeah.
But if you can afford it, please buy the book.
Stanton and Zach Rhodes came out with a new book, Outgrowing Addiction. So I'm peddling it for them. And they actually contacted us. They're like, "Hey, will you help us sell our book?" I'm like, "I would love to, but Mark gives ours away. So I don't know how I'm going to help you."
But I just want to say, like how we started the show, we have YouTube videos, tutorials.
Oh yeah,
now.
our YouTube channel.
Our YouTube channel is filling up with videos and
because of our amazing marketing video production guru, which is Jeff Watson. I have to give him a shout out. He's amazing. Our videos are beautiful now.
Yeah.
He's done more work in a few months than it's amazing.
Yeah.
So thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
So our YouTube channel is the Freedom Model. So if you go on YouTube and you search on the Freedom Model, you'll see our channel.
And the Addiction Solution Podcast. So there's really, between the books, the Freedom Model for the Family, the Freedom Model for Addictions, and the YouTube channel and the podcast, there's really no reason why you can't
access
the information. And you can always call and talk to us.
Yeah, we're happy to talk to anybody.
The number is all over the websites.
Yeah.
Let me say something else though about African American communities. Some of the original myths about drugs were really ugly and aimed at African Americans, but also the Chinese. It was used over time to control minority populations.
That's right.
That's why drugs were made illegal. And that's not to say that immigrant populations were any bigger of users, but they were users of particular drugs, right? So
the tool.
When Mexicans came over with marijuana, we didn't really have marijuana here. Like they grew hemp. I guess George Washington grew hemp, or people didn't use marijuana. There was cannabis that they put in some of those, the snake oils back in the 1800s, but people didn't smoke marijuana. As soon as Mexican workers come over with marijuana, they want to make that illegal. Why? To control the Mexican population. So I think, a good inroad or angle to convince minority communities that, hey, maybe they should take another look at the truth about addiction is to dig into that history. And although I don't agree with Johann Hari's sort of main thesis about addiction, his book, Chasing the Scream, goes into a lot of that history about drugs being used to control minority addiction, the idea of addiction and drug prohibition being used to blame minorities and control them, right? So you want to dig into that history. That might be interesting stuff to talk about within minority communities, get people to take another look. Because then once you see that history, you want to say, well, what else about all this stuff they tell me about addiction is wrong?
Yeah.
We have a quick question here. Do you see Jerry?
Read Carl Hart's book, High Price.
Oh yes, High Price. It's a great book. Great book. Would you be willing to come to one of our community centers and speak with local leaders of the NAACP in our area here in Baltimore? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You just tell us when and where, and we'll be there.
And that goes for the whole audience. If you have, an audience or a community or a group of moms that want to talk to us in a community, maybe where there's been some overdose risk or overdoses and people are frightened, we can help with all of that. We go on the road. That's what we do. Anywhere that people, we lost Steve. Anywhere that people need help, we'll go there.
Yep. We're here to help. And no, I haven't read that one yet, Monica. She asked if we've read the US of AA. I have not had a chance to read that one yet.
I know what it is, and it goes into some of that history of Marty Mann that we talked about. Right? So it brings up a lot of that stuff. What are you laughing at now?
I'm laughing at Matthew. Says, I ordered the freedom model for the family to proofread it before I consider nuking family relations. No, we've talked to Matthew, and his family is heavily steeped in AA. So, yeah, that's a good point. I think I did a good job at making it.
We kind of tap danced with it a bit.
I think I did.
Because the freedom model, I kind of
would nuke those.
Oh yeah, I swing the bat really hard right off the rip, and Michelle was like, "We got to have a book for families that's a little toned down, Mark."
That isn't quite so scary for them. So, so yes, I will, Monica. I will get that book, and maybe we'll review it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
I've seen it all over the place. So
yeah, I have too. We have to also do Stanton and Zach's book.
Yep.
And I have it. I haven't got a chance to read it yet, but I will get to it. It's been a busy couple of weeks. So we have a couple minutes left. What do you guys have to say? Will you guys come talk at my birthday as surprise guests, and so I'll have captive audience at that point? Yes, we totally will, Matthew. We would be happy to come. Oh my gosh. It'd be almost like a reverse intervention.
Yeah, we'd be having an intervention with your parents. That would make Matthew just write a letter about how they've harmed you, and then we'll back you up.
We'll back you up. We'll be there. Yeah, we don't. If people wonder, we're joking, tongue in cheek. We don't do interventions because interventions to the perspective where everybody gets around and they corner us. Substance user. I've had one done with me. It's pretty awful. If you want to make somebody totally suicidal, I'd highly recommend it. And make them make substance use look that much more attractive, because it totally did. So yeah, we don't do interventions. We're happy to talk with people that are willing to talk to us. If you have somebody that is struggling and you're not really sure how to talk to them, we'll totally, you call us. We can, we can help.
Yeah. Let me just say the websites. thefreedommodel.org, soberforever.net.
And our number is 888-424-2626. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. And I guess we'll see you in a couple weeks. And stay tuned. We'll have a podcast coming out early next week.
All right.
Bye, everybody.